live stream. Yeah.
Great. Okay, it's 5:30.
Video on. Okay. Okay. Madam Milli. Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, perfect. And is everyone in the meeting room? We good to go? Yeah, join in. Okay, perfect. Close. Okay. All right. Hello and good evening. Happy International Archives Day. A fun fact to begin with, which is actually why are we even celebrating International Archives Day, is that the International Council of Archives was formed on this day in 1948 under UNESCO. And in 2007, we decided that this day would be marked as International Archives Day, which then we eventually decided that we'd stretch it on to a week because we have enough to celebrate. So International Archives Day and International Archives Week is closely tied with how Milli as a group has come into existence. The Milli Archives Collective is a collective of communities and individuals interested in nurturing archives. And we first came together in 2020 to host a series of events for International Archives Week, which we also did, again, as you all know, in 2021. While there is a long-standing joke amongst us that we only function during this 1 week of the year, we hope that this won't be the case from now onwards. This year, we've decided to do something different. For those who are joining us on Zoom, we've had two components to Milli 2022 this year. We've had workshops to build resources for the archival community, and we've had this showcase as our public component to our sessions this year. We're really glad to have our colleagues from different archives across India and beyond join us virtually for this event. And we thank you all on Zoom for taking the time and effort to join us this evening and for putting in the effort to create these presentations and join us in today. So the plan for this evening is to hear from 12 different archives of different kinds, different flavors, who will each get 4 minutes to give us the essence of their archive. We're going to be a little bit strict with timekeeping. Presenters, please bear with us. We have Ishita here, a Milli member and founder of Curating for Culture, who will be helping us keep time. Around 3 minutes and 45 seconds, we will give you a heads up. So please do wrap up and keep time. This is only so we can get to the more fun bit of the event, which is interacting between all of us and taking questions from members of the audience. So I think we are good to go now. So, we will be starting in reverse alphabetical order, and you will hear from Zuban first. So let me just share the screen and I'm not on the first slide. Beginning from the beginning. Okay. Can done? All right. So Ishani from Zuban will be our first presenter. Ishani, over to you.
Hi, Sanjana. Thanks so much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will start and I will attempt to stick to time. Thank you so much for asking Zuban to be here today, and thanks to Milli Archives Collective overall. My name is Ishani, as you heard. and I am part of an organization called Zuban, which is a feminist NGO that works on the issues of gender, labor, cultural production in the northeast of India, of violence, and women's histories overall. We focus mostly through the mediums of visual and performance arts as well as publishing. Speaking of publishing, you might know us better, some of us might know us better as our sister organization, Zuban Publishers, which publishes books and has been doing so in continuation with the legacy of Kali for Women. Some of our books are Name, Place, Animal, Thing by the Reba Linden that was shortlisted for the JCB Prize last year. When the River Sleeps, which won the Henry Prize for Fiction in 2015, as well as books like The History of Doing. And we also made history that are a part of gender studies courses and wonderful books for children and young adults as well. But I'm here as a representative of the NGO to talk to you about some of our work as a participant and a chronicler of the women's movements in this region. So archival priorities have kind of been at the forefront of our work from the very beginning, as far back as Kali, even if we didn't always know exactly how to go about archival work as the field is also developing. But it's solidified via funding actually in a project called Poster Women. Sanjana, I'm just wondering, should I also be presenting? Because I don't think the slides are moving.
No, I'll change the screen. Yeah.
Thanks. So a project called Poster Women is a visual mapping of women's movements in the region that is India. And what we did was ask collectives, groups, NGOs, on the ground networks to help us put together all of the posters and all of the visual mediums that they had used for activism, for collectivization and mobilization over the years as a way of keeping somehow a record of the history of these movements. So there are 1,500 posters, of which 200 have been organized in an exhibit and traveled the country, and I think outside the country as well, which is on an open web archive. You can see some of them in this on this slide. And the website is at the bottom, which is posterwomen.org. I'm not going to go through the themes because you can see those on the website as well. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the challenges that we faced in collecting some of these posters, which were illustrative of the problem that was identified in the first place, which was that since so many of these movements are changing and developing all the time, the people in the groups are moving in and out and dealing with different challenges from the state and society. It was hard to actually capture the detail of all of the posters and all of the movements that could actually be referenced by some of these images. Some of the images existed without that kind of archival detail. Some of them existed and some of the detail was there, but it was hard to trace anybody back to those images. We also had, as part of the same project, a collection of both the self-written histories and memories of women's participation in the women's movements that they identified with, as well as interviews with activists. So this is self-authored narratives by people like Ruth Vanita, Amu Joseph, Vibhuti Patel, Aliamma Vijayan, Shiru Francis, Charles Mahajan, and so on, as well as interviews with a special focus in the northeastern states. So with people like Mona Lisa Chankija, Monisha Bahal, Hemalata Barua, as well as the Mochna team, many other people, B. Saraswati, and so on.
Ishani, you will have to start wrapping up. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. The last part of the archive is countering the idea that these movements are led or owned by middle-class women. So it looked at and collected art done by socially excluded craftspeople, usually indigenous, tribal and Dalit women. So Madhubani work, Pachakrita, Gond, card paintings, and so on, also available on the website. I take 2 minutes to say that we're also in the process of updating some of this work, as well as our, not 2 minutes, 30 seconds, as well as our upcoming work into a new media archive that we'll probably ask Milli to help us with conceptualizing at some stage to make this available in slightly more updated format to anybody who might want to look at it. Thanks so much, and that's all.
Thank you, Ishani. We will just move on to our next presenter in 1 minute. Just stop some speaker issues. Is this better?
Yeah, much better.
Our next presenter is Spandana from the Wipro Archives and Resource Center. Spandana, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjana. It's great to be part of this showcase and audible, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
You're audible, yeah.
Thank you. So, though I will be primarily presenting it, my colleagues Vinita and Ajit are in the audience and they can join us in the discussion if there are questions later. So, for us, it all started with a table. A table went missing, and Anurag Behar, CEO of the Azim Premji Foundation, realized that nobody actually knows that the significance of that table. The table was the one, yes, that's the one where for a long time, since before the company headquarters shifted to Bangalore, all the board meetings were having. So this incident actually pointed out the need for one thing, chronicling the history of the company, especially when you think how fantastic the story is, starting in 1945 as a vegetable oil production, someplace interior Maharashtra. Yeah, the next one, please. Thank you. Yeah. It went to be what it is today, a 2 lakh employee company spread across the world. But it is also a story of the country's growth, economy, IT industry development. It's also a story of one person bringing this company here after taking it over at the age of 21. It's also a story of its values, the values that are first articulated in 1971 and still is the rock on which we keep building upon. It's also the story of how the economic ownership of the company progressively was transferred to APF over the years, which means that a part of the profit goes directly to serving some of the most disadvantaged people of the world. So it's a story worth telling. But there was no single definitive documentative source of information that maps this evolution and growth of the company or provides any kind of reference points for its people, events, and landmark decisions. So this is where the Wipro Story project began. In the next slide. In late 2016. The team spent the first year interviewing people, and we still continue to do so. This helped us understanding the chain of events, create narratives, timelines. The archive came into being in 2017 as part of WSP's agenda to collect and preserve archival material related to the company history. So we have selected five examples just to take you through very quickly. The next one. Yep. So this is the most precious, one of the most precious items we have, the minute book from 1946 on the left that has handwritten minutes since the very first board meeting of WIBP, Western India Vegetable Products, as it was called then, and a page from the first annual report from 1947. Next one. There is one in the middle. No? Okay. That's strange, but there was one with the Vanaspati can, the Sunflower Vanaspati brand can, and one advertisement. So let's go back to the Santur one. So this is the first poster from Santur that was released in 1986. This is Neerja Vanot, the air hostess, starring the poster. We also have samples, as you can see on the right. The next one is actually one of the mini computers, the third generation S series 386. On the right, you can see we have the machine here and the advertisement, one of the various advertisements that went out with the product. This was 87. And the last one that I brought with me today is when Wipro got listed in NYSE in October 2000. And we have photos, videos, broadcasts recorded from the event. So what makes the Wipro Archives and WSP special is the emphasis on making the story and information available in various forms and formats since its inception. The team has archivists, conservators, as well as researchers and writers. So the next slide, you can see, if you can go, yeah, thank you. No, this one, yeah. So we traveled across India and USA to get information, interviews, material, and we are continue to do so in the middle of pandemic also. We plan to share our stories and collections, outcomes in print, AV, as well as in various other digital platforms. Our one book is already out. This book, The Story of April, illustrated book, as we call it. There is another long form book in line. On the other hand, discussions and planning are on for sharing the story via film, online exhibitions, and maybe a physical museum. Since the archive has not been publicly launched yet, we serve as a resource to various internal teams as well as our sister concerns. We also try answering archival queries received as and when internally and sometimes from external researchers. Our biggest challenge, though, is to figure out legal and information security related implications in sharing our collection with public online and offline. So that will be all from Retro Archives. I hope I was within time.
Thanks, Vandana. Yeah, thank you for sticking perfectly to time.
Thanks.
Yep. Next up, we have Sophia from the South Asian American Digital Archive. Sophia, over to you.
Hi, do you have the slides?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Great, thank you.
Just tell me when you want me to change the slides.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm so glad we're all here today. My name is Sophia Teresa Trail. I am working currently as the program assistant at SADA, the South Asian American Digital Archive, and I'm calling in today from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where SADA is based and where I currently work and live. So actually good morning to you because it's 8:22 a.m. here. We are an organization that works nationally to collect and preserve stories from the South Asian American community, and we are a community-based post-custodial and digital-only archive, which means we're not building a physical repository of materials, but using the power of the digital medium to digitally preserve, digitize, and provide online access to the archival materials, totally free and open to the public. So this allows the original materials to remain with whoever has them, oftentimes a community member, organization, or other institution. So you can access SADA's archive. Oh, no, you can stay on the previous slide. Thank you. So you can access SADA's archive by going to our website. That's sada.org, so saada.org. As you can see here, this is a screenshot of the website, and you can click on the tab that says Browse the Archive to view the materials. And this is organized by several types of categories like general themes, time period, language, state, authors, events, where they come from, the organization or institution. And we have approximately 4,541 items in the archive, making SADA the largest publicly accessible collection of South Asian American stories. Can you move to the next slide, please? There should be one before that. Yeah. What was the other one with it has the maps on it? Can you move forward again? Sorry.
No worries.
There's one that has like the quote. Oh yes, this one. Thank you. So I want to share this quote with you. It's from a scholar from archival studies. Her name is Jeanette Bistian, and she says, "The community without its records is a community under siege, defending itself, its identity, and its version of history without a firm foundation on which to stand." So SADA was started 14 years ago, recognizing that the South Asian American community was one that did not have access to its records. And to this day, there are still no other organizations working systematically to collect stories from the South Asian American community. And there has historically been no place for our community stories to go. So SADA's work highlights stories from those who live here in the US, who trace their heritage to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Maldives, and the many South Asian diaspora communities around the world. And by that, what I mean is those living in the US who trace their heritage directly to perhaps Guyana, Trinidad, South Africa, the UK, other places, but who maybe through one or two or even more generations trace their heritage back to South Asia. And there are 5.4 million South Asians in the US. 1 in every 100 Americans traces their heritage to South Asia. And our community is the fastest growing immigrant community in the US. Can you move to the last slide, please? Oh, I think it's yes, this one. Thank you. So I wanted to end by talking about our book, Our Stories: An Introduction to South Asian American History, that we published last year. This book is intended for high school and college age readers, and it is the first textbook to be published on South Asian American history. There are 64 contributing authors, including academics, scholars, journalists, artists, and other community members. And you can buy the book as either a digital or hardcover edition at sada.org/ourstories. There's also an educator companion that's developed for teachers by a few South Asian American educators in the Bay Area. And that's available at that link, sada.org/ourstories, as well as a free digital download. And Our Stories has actually just recently become available as a paperback on Amazon. So currently we have over 2,000 copies of Our Stories in homes, schools, libraries, and institutions across the US and elsewhere, as you can see here in this map. And our goal is to get this book into the hands of as many people as possible so that the stories of our community can be shared and remembered. Thank you everyone for having me, and thank you Milli Archives Collective for having me as well.
Thank you, Sophia. Next up, we have the Spi Archives. Over to you, Mr. Ramakanta. Yeah. Ramakanta sir, are you here? He's on the chat. He's on the chat.
So you're muted.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, yeah, audible now.
Yeah.
Yeah, over to
Can
you. Yeah.
Start with the slides, please.
Yeah.
So good evening, all of you. Welcome on the day of the International Day of Archives. This is about the story of the State Bank of India, which goes back to the 1806. But before that, the bank was started in India. It was basically the money lenders who was practicing in East India. They were financing to each and every individual on the basis of the 3 C's. That is, one is the caste, another is the class, and there is a conflict in each other. On the basis of the class used to give the loan to the others from 24% to 60% rate of interest. Keeping in mind about all these things, the East Indian Company in the beginning of the 19th century, they started a formula basically to devise the rate of interest, stabilize the rate of interest and mobilize the credit policy. They established the bank at Calcutta on 2nd June 1806. And fortunately, in the last just week before, we celebrated exactly a week before we completed 216 years uninterrupted service in this soil of the country. We have completed, and we are running in the 217 years. And from 2nd June 1806, it took some 2 years time. The Bank of Calcutta was renamed and redesignated to the Bank of Bengal from 2nd January 1809. And then it was a separate entity, and till 1840 there was no other bank. And in 1840 the Bank of Bombay was being established at Bombay. That was on 15th April. And on 1st July 1843, the third bank came up in Madras, was known as the Bank of Madras. And then these 3 banks continue as a separate entity with the legal tenders issuing by themselves, issuing the money currency, paper note currency. And it was in 1861, the bank was started their branch banking business, and slowly it continued till 1921. These 3 banks were amalgamated together to form a new name called the Imperial Bank of India. And the power was vested of looking after the central banking in India. And this continued till 1955. Thus, by an act of parliament, the State Bank of India came into existence, which you can see the banana tree as a logo. And then slowly in 1971, the reorganization took place. Then the new nomenclature logos, the State Bank of India came up. And recently we have changed with the new logo. That's the logos of the SBI, the keyhole logo with the SBI, and in the bottom it is banker to every Indians. Ma'am, can you go to the next slides? Can you please go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So we are holding up the archives because the archives was very new. It was a new concept in the banking industry. The bank was started in 1806, but the archives was started in 2007. I'm the chief archivist, and all these are information that is holding in the archives, minute book of the records, balance sheets, opinion report, correspondence, branch correspondence, inspection report, all the records of the 1955. We are having a series of the record with the list. Next, madam, please. This is about the holding of the libraries, more than 5,000 that was mentioned. Unfortunately, it was more than 10,000 rare books and journals. We are in our custody with the archives. And for this is the background. This is how we give the access policy in the State Bank of India. What are the rules, guidelines follows? As per the National Archives of India, we follow the guidelines also. Next, ma'am, please. The last one I want to show. This is the beautiful created on the backdrop. You can see the beautiful created museums, which has been dedicated to the all of the individuals of the society, colleges, students, institutes, universities, our employees, those who come and imparted with the training for the 1 hour, 2 hours, depending upon their timings. Thank you for all of you taking pain. Please, I welcome all of you to come and visit to the State Bank Archives and Museum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Pari. Just give me a minute so I can make sure that you are able to see the speaker from Pari as well as their slides. Okay, next up we have Vinuta from Pari. Over to you, Vinuta.
Hi, my internet seems to be a little wonky, so I hope I'm audible and everyone can see me, because I can't see myself actually. So thank you all for, thank you Milli Collective for inviting us to talk about the People's Archive of Rural India. As many of you may know, the People's Archive of Rural India is a digital journalism platform. We cover stories from rural India. But why do we call ourselves an archive? Because, could we just go to the first slide, please? Yeah, we call ourselves an archive because the kind of stories that we do through our journalism is not really being covered anywhere else, despite the fact that a majority of India's population lives in rural India. The percentage of coverage that rural India gets in national newspapers especially is really marginal. If you look at data that is now about 4 to 5 years old, the front pages of newspapers barely carry 0.67% of news from rural India. And not much has changed even since this data was computed. So in that sense, everything that Pari does is really a record that will go into, is an archive, it's a database. We do a variety of things. We cover everything that we can about rural India, but with specific focus on sectors like education, housing, agriculture, poverty, and occupation. So the storytelling that we do is not just news. It's mainly the format that we use is that we have is feature writing and narrative storytelling. So our stories do go in depth. We try to, some of the core elements that we focus on are, like I said, occupation, labor, women, and sources that are really verified, so that everything that goes into the story forms a record for the future. Could we go to the next slide, please? So PARI's mandate is to cover rural India, but within that, it's also to focus on everyday lives of everyday people. That's our slogan. We talk about, documenting diversity of people, not just what they do, but also the languages they speak, the cultural practices they follow. We also look at facial diversity. We have a project called Faces. If you visit our website, you'll be able to see that, where we record people from different parts of the country and talk about, where they're from and what they want to, the message from them to the rest of us. So the Faces project is a very important project for PARI, because there's no such database that shows the variety of people that live in India. If we look at the third slide, the final slide, this is really the crucial thing. I think, how do we do our archiving? I mean, the work we do and how it goes into the database that forms the archive of the people's archive of rural India. We don't just do textual storytelling. We use a lot of audio, video, different formats. We have long features. We have short sort of one-offs that are centered around a very specific idea. We have something called Musafir, where if a reporter is just passing by and finds something interesting that we can write about. We have Mosaic, which is the creative writing section, where very recently we published, in fact, for the first time, a language called Devli Bili, which is an Adivasi language spoken in Gujarat, on the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And the poet wrote these poems, and we've translated them and we've published them on the website. So in many different ways, we are recording various aspects of rural India through videos, through photos. We have a section called albums and talking albums, which are just photos, and visual record is also a very important part of PARI's work. So if you look at our stories, any of the PARI stories, when you visit our website, you'll see that, photographs and video and audio content is given a lot of prominence in what we do. A few sections that I'd like to highlight that are really kind of important from the archival point of view. We have a very, very strong library section, which is widely referred to online. We get a lot of visitors coming to the library, and the themes, it's very well organized. The racks are intuitive. They're meant for researchers. We also have the Grindel Songs project, which some people may have heard of. This is the collection that came to PARI it was a project that was started by Hema Raikar and Guy Potvin in Pune, and we now present it on PARI through storytelling. So this is a record of songs. It's a huge database of Grindel songs sung by women in Maharashtra and some in Karnataka. And we are presenting them as stories, and you'll see some of these on the website. Then upcoming projects.
To interrupt,
yeah.
we'll need you to wrap up.
Yep, I am wrapping up. This is the last thing I'm going to say. So and then we also have a PARI education section where the students that we work with, we have a program that works with the colleges and schools, and students write for us, and that's all featured in PARI education. Our stories are translated in 13 languages. Some of them, I mean, not all stories get it done immediately, but over time, but we have been translating in 13 languages, and you'll see that as well when you visit PARI and read a story. Thank you for inviting us, Milli.
Thank you, Vinita. Okay, next up we have Deepti, who will be leading us to the Kelowska archive. Over to you, Deepti.
Hi. Right. So I'm part of, my name is Dipti Anand, and thank you so much for involving us in today's showcase. So I'm part of Past Perfect Heritage Management, and we've been setting up the Kirloskar Archives for over about 2 years now. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like I said, we, like any archive, private archive, we sort of start off with a core collection that came to us. Now, this core collection contained a variety of, mixed media collections, right from tons of photographs, which came in albums and loose. We had negatives, slides, correspondence, newspaper articles, memorabilia, and in which we sort of found everything from Shantanu Rao Kirloskar's cameras to bow ties, and all of that. The archive currently geographically operates out of the Kirloskar Oil Engines factory in Pune, and that's where we are based out of and are currently sort of building it. Of course, the pandemic was really crucial in our sort of timelines on how the archive was shaping up. What we managed to do in the last 2 years, of course, is first digitize everything, ensure that everything was cataloged. The physical material is now being rehoused into acid-free storage solutions. And the next step for the archive that we are essentially looking at is, of course, integrating a software so that we can help researchers sort of just directly access our collection, as well as focus on the oral history component of the collection. I'll just quickly run through what the archive comprises. Yeah. So the next one, thank you. So along with, of course, being an archive to the Kirloskar group, and which started in 1888, and the family itself, what we also loved sort of tracing is the parallel narratives that came out of this archive. We, of course, are custodians of over 1 lakh photographs, right from Lakshman Rao Kirloskar, who started the Kirloskar group. So of course, we see the group shifting from agricultural inventions to engineering innovations, etc. So we have tons of photographs commemorating this whole aspect, from factory shots to functions, family photographs, and more. Next slide. Yeah, this is something that's a highlight in our photos, an agriculture exhibition from 1926. Just keep going next. I'll take it through quickly. Yeah, which the Kirloskars also participated in. Next. We have a wealth of information that comes through internal publications, which is one of our most prized collections of the archive. We have everything from annual reports to a lot of internal publications that the Kirloskar group published. Now, what also happened is that these publications eventually became literary sort of repositories in themselves, and renowned writers contributed to these magazines. So they also form a very important resource of literature, therefore, Marathi literature, that is regional literature. So we have a variety of those as well. Next. This is just snapshots of Kirloskar Wadi, which we have a lot of also. That's where the Kirloskar group started. Yeah, go next. And then origin stories of monumental inventions in engineering. Just keep going. Yeah. We have photographs commemorating the same, correspondence stating a lot of that. We have drawings, next one. Drawings that sort of show you product innovation, invention. And then, like I said, go next. Parallel narratives, like I said, about the country's changing economy. We have the whole export market sort of rising, and we have photographs talking about that. So the whole economic shift and how the Kirloskar group responded to industrialization in India, that becomes a very important theme as well that we can easily trace through the archive. So a multiplicity of themes and collections right now lie at the archive. So far, we've been requesting we've been accepting requests for access to the archive, but we hope to open it up soon to researchers as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepti. Next up, we have Prashanth from the Kabir Project. Prashanth, would you like to start with the video?
Yeah, I'll just speak just for a moment, and then we
Sure.
can play the video.
Sure.
So hello everyone. I am Prashanth, and I'm here representing the Kabir Project. We are located at the Shrishti Institute of Art, Design and Technology. And our archive called Ajab Sheher is a collection of Sufi, Bhakti, and Baul songs from the oral folk traditions of India, specifically regions of Malwa, Kutch, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Sindh, Bengal, and Pakistan. These collections were formed out of journeys undertaken by Shabnam Birmani, who's a documentary filmmaker, over many years from 2002 to 2009 and further also. And it's born out of those recordings, but we are hoping to expand out of those collections as well. So I thought I'll just start by showing you a small video, which gives you a glimpse of these journeys that have resulted in the collection that we have. So can we have the video now?
Yep, just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, understand.
If you want, I can also share it if there's an issue. So while our archive is primarily sort of, there's a... There is, yeah. So I just wanted to say that while our archive has a lot of songs, but we have also built a world around the songs, and we have also couplets, reflections, which are conversations with singers, experts, speakers. Could we have the screenshots of our thing? I just wanted to also say that because we are working with living oral traditions, we also do not see our work as that of preservation. We do not think that we are preserving or, sort of like making a memory archive, but it's largely a way of participating in this tradition. And the goal of our archive is in a way to create a nice curation and a collection and form linkages between traditions like Bhakti, Sufi, and Baul. The other aspect is that this archive is not only for researchers and academics. This is also imagined as an archive for a popular public viewing and consumption. And in that sense, we also are present on YouTube. All our videos which we create of songs, of interviews, which are created into reflections, are present to listen and watch on YouTube. But primarily, we have built a website. Next slide, called Ajab Sheher. So these are on top. You can see our categories. So you can see that we have a lot of different material, which sort of builds a world of Bhakti Sufi poetry. We have songs, we have couplets, and we have reflections, which are interviews. We also write about key themes in Bhakti Sufi poetry, which is a section called Words. And I'll just quickly take you through the screenshots of our different pages. And we have worked a lot on the front end so that it becomes an archive which people access very freely and can immerse in the poetry. So can we have the next slide?
Sorry, but Prashanth, you'll have to also make this
Okay.
very. Yeah.
So can you just, I'll just show you each of the quickly pages. So this is there's a slide missing, I think. Anyway, this is the song page. So you can see that each of the songs sometimes also come with multiple versions. These are our all songs pages. Right now, there are 182 songs, and we are continuing to upload more and more songs. Our song page, next slide, carries lyrics in all three languages, Hindi and translation. You can toggle between the three sections. We also have couplet section. We have, and even the couplets have a listening component. So everything that we have in archive, we have strived to foreground the oral nature of this poetry. So even the couplets are listened to in multiple versions through multiple singers. Can we have the next slide, please? We also have reflections, which are interviews, as I said. And finally, just one last point. The relationship between the multiple components of the archive is connected through keywords, which we have drawn from the poetry itself. So we have not categorized content based on region or person or a specific cultural marker, but rather through the poetics of the songs themselves. I'm sorry for taking a little bit of time. So I think we can come back to it in the discussion. Thank you.
No worries, Prashanth. Thank you very much. Next up, we have the Goa State Archives. Over to you.
Good evening.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? My video is been seen?
yes, audible. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me first apologize that I have not carried any PPT. So just excuse me for that. So I'll be talking few things about Goa State Archives, which is one of the oldest state archives in South Asia or Southeast Asia, we can consider. The Goa State Archives was established initially in 1595, and the first record keeper, Diogo Couto, was appointed by the Portuguese government, especially to keep and update all the records of the Portuguese bonds, seaborne trade, and Goa State Archives is consisting of the record of the fall, rise, and decay of the Portuguese seaborne empire. And also it contains about how the Asians and Africans tried to outset these Europeans from the Asian and African, colonial powers. So historically, 25th February 1595, Diogo de Couto was appointed, and the Tor de Tombo do Estado da India was the formal name of the archives, which was set up by the Portuguese in Goa. He was first given the task to compile the data from 1510 to 1520, a first decade, and later on he was publishing a decade-long records of the Portuguese empire in the Indian subcontinent. A special reference has to be made of Joaquim Heliodoro da Cunha Rivera, who came to Goa and was appointed as Secretary of the Governor General in 1855. And he thought of printing all those old Portuguese records, which were very brittle and they were not readable properly. The one basic problem which the archives is facing is that old Portuguese records, the paleography is not been, now people are not there to read and understand those paleography. But thankfully, Joaquim Heliodoro Cunha Rivera was able to transcribe or transliterate from the old Portuguese to the new Portuguese, and he published in the Arquivo Português Oriental, the record series. And those published records are now available in Goa Archives. Apart from that, we have a record series titled Mensonge du Rei, that is specially consisting records written during the monsoon period. And that's why it has been titled as Mensonge du Rei. Now, this Mensonge du Rei consists of all the correspondences between Goa and its headquarters that time was in Portugal. So the Portuguese government in Lisbon, whatever correspondences were happening from Goa to Lisbon and Lisbon to Goa are available in this particular record series, which is ranging from 1568 onwards till 1914. Apart from that, one of the important record series is Reis Virginius. Reis Virginius consists about the Portuguese relation with the neighboring kings, and this particular record series from 1619 to 1842 is been preserved in the archives of Goa, and all these volumes contains records of Portuguese relation with the Savans of Wadi or the Bhosles, the Marathas, then the Tipu Sultan, Hyder Ali, the Nayakas of Keladi in the Karnataka, Nizams, then Mughals. All these records are been systematically organized in Reis Virginius volume. Apart from that, there are several Modi Marathi records in Goa Archive. Modi was the script of the Marathi language, and various letters were written in this particular script. So around 8,000 documents are available in Goa Archives, of which in last 5 years, we were able to transliterate 2,500 documents into the Devanagari Marathi, the present day style of Marathi. And we have also now coming up with publications related to the records of Savans of Wadi, the Peshwas. So these are all in pipeline at present. Apart from that, we have some.
Mr. Balaji,
Yeah.
could you please wrap up?
Yes, apart from that, we have records related to Goa's struggle for freedom, and all these records are available in archives. One of the major drawback is we have not yet digitized and it's not available digitally. So research scholars have to come to archives, refer the catalog which is available, the inventories, and then refer to the whichever record series they are researching on. This is about the historical archives of Goa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have the SEPT Archives. Over to you, Karthikeya.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, audible. Yeah.
All right. So good evening, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure and privilege to be introducing the SEPT Archives to you all, as together we celebrate the International Archives Week. We are most grateful to Milli for creating this wonderful opportunity for us. SEPT Archives is an initiative by SEPT University. It was set up in 2012, and it was the only India's first archive for architecture and habitat. It is also recognized by National Archives of India. And it is working towards acquiring, organizing, and preserving history of pedagogy and practice. It is open to students, scholars, and professionals from across the globe for reference and research. Our ever-growing collections are categorized under these 4 titles. We already have 21 noted practices pan-India, reflecting the impact a practice or a practitioner has on the built environment. As for SEPT Repository, the University Archives preserves institutional memory covering student and faculty work, campus events, and university records spanning 6 decades. And our oral histories enrich our collections. So our collections not only has drawings, but photographs, slides, negatives, reports, documents, and a lot more. We are constantly engaged in developing, exploring, and improvising our record management system, finding aids for our collections to make it a better experience for the user and better access to the material that we have. It is our endeavor to continually expand our collection base and repository. The visuals here represent various events and curatorial activities from the past and present that we have undertaken for effective dissemination. The research fellowship program which we have started since November 2021, it helps us curate our collections and provides exciting opportunities for young graduates from architecture and allied disciplines. So we welcome young graduates and young professionals to contact us, come forward to us, and create career opportunities with us. We can move to the last slide, please. So that's it. You can follow us on our social media channels for more updates, and do please write to us. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. And thank you for finishing before time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Buddhakattu Tribal and Folklore Archive. Shumanto, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Honestly, I'm extremely nervous because after seeing this illustrious list of archives, it's such a great opportunity for us to be featured here. So I'm going to quickly run through what we want to talk about. So it's pronounced the Buddhakattu Archive, the Buddhakattu Tribal and Folklore Archive. Buddhakattu in Kannada basically means tribal. We are doing this under the auspices of Global Culture, which is a youth-run charitable organization based in Bangalore. Its members and volunteers consist of established musicians, performers, storytellers, and artists who have been banded together to create an art and artist-friendly society. Global Culture is the latest in a series of organizations founded by Arun Shiva Ganesh while working in performing arts for over 2 decades in various capacities. He is a world music percussionist, cultural exchange curator, and ambassador who has also traveled around the globe advocating and educating audiences about tribal and folk performing arts from the subcontinent. Arun has been also collaborating with performing artists of great notability and many countless undiscovered stalwarts of performing arts from the remote corners of India. Learning about the struggles and erasure of these undiscovered masters and countless traditional artists compelled the collective to work together toward finding them respite and restitution. Currently, the collective works primarily for grassroots artists that are in need of affirmative support and solutions to help them sustain their practice. We can move to slide 2. We also curate educational workshops for youth in public spaces, institutions, workplaces, community events, and festivals. Our curations call for attention to indigenous and folk art forms, the ecological crisis we face, and the direct correlations between the two. Most tribal communities are also the earliest inhabitants of the subcontinent region where we live. People often forget that tribal languages and dialects predate many of the mainstream languages in use today. Within the archive, we are currently working on a 3-episode pilot. I think I didn't mention this earlier, but we are an early stage archive, and most of our material is still unreleased. I'll be sharing a QR code at the end so that you can go to a small teaser of episode 1. But apart from that, we're working on 3 pilot episodes of the Buddhakattu Tribal and Folklore Archive, where we're working on extensive multimedia archiving of rare tribal performing artist groups from the Kudia, Soliga, and Siddhi tribes of Karnataka. Set in their natural surroundings, the featured artists are performing their rare art forms and sharing invaluable insights into the age-old knowledge and wisdom contained within those genres. The multimedia features will also serve as a platform for the featured artists to gain notability and acclaim. We are ensuring no efforts are spared to credit and compensate all featured artists for their contributions and time while creating a non-partisan repository of their work to benefit future generations. Our near-term goal is the completion of the 3-episode mini pilot that will be curated as a proof of concept series to help the initiative garner further support and assistance to scale up. With the right support, we plan to scale the pilot initiative to feature 35 artists or groups from over 25 tribes located in and around Karnataka. Those many feature episodes will make up part of edition 1 and edition 2. After completing full production, we will be working to expand this digital repository of rare tribal folk performing artists by digitizing footage from the 1980s that are currently on magnetic tape being preserved by independent filmmakers who are also guiding us through our ongoing production process. So that was the thing I want to read through to make sure I don't waste too much time. As you can see, it's quite a loaded idea that we have, which is creating a repository of these rare tribal artists. That's a picture of Sri Sharda Somaya, who is the artist from the Kodia tribe, who we are currently featuring within episode 1. The archive will have not just short films, but a whole bunch of podcasts and long-form multimedia properties that will help inform audiences about the many stories, the great amount of knowledge that exists within these genres itself. We're hoping to reach about 35 artists, as I said. And those of you who are on a computer screen can just scan this QR code. I didn't want to play the video primarily because it might have problem loading, etc. I suggest and request that you wear headphones. And I think that's part of that's almost everything of what I wanted to say. I still am sure I've missed something. And I hope we can take that up in the question answer sessions. And I hope I've stayed within time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Feel free to share the QR code in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'll put down a Google link so that people can just click and go to that. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next up we have the Bihar State Archives. Over to you, Ashok sir. Yeah, are you here? Sir, are you here? No. Easy. Sure.
Thank you, Sanjana ji. Good evening, all of you. Welcome to the International Archives Day. I'm Dr. Ashok Kumar Ranjan, archivist from Bihar State Archives, Patna. Today, on the occasion of International Archives Day, Milli organized a great function. My director, Sri Suman Kumar, Bihar State Archives, Patna, authorized me to deliver a lecture. The Bihar State Archives, formerly known as a State Central Record Office, Bihar, came into existence on the 1st March 1954. Earlier, it was known as Civil Secretariat Records Room, which was created with the formation of the separate province of Bihar and Odisha in 1912. It was raised to the status of a directorate in 1956. At present, Directorate of Bihar State Archives functions under the Cabinet Secretariat Department, Government of Bihar. We have 3 regional archive centers, which Maharaja Dhiraj Rameswar Singh Archives, Darbhanga, Regional Archives, Bhagalpur, and Regional Archives, Betia, which are headed by respective regional archives officer. The department functions as a nodal agency of the government in regard to record management and administration. The Directorate of Bihar State Archives has double function in perform. It is an archives with such functions as accession and preservation of record, as well as a government office carrying out certain duties in connection with current papers and records. We have 3 major works: digitization, conservation, and publication. Preservation, commonly used by archives, library, and museum to describe the way in which their collections are safeguarded and kept in good physical condition. This can be done through a variety of measures aimed both at minimize the risk of loss and slowing down as much as possible the process of physical deterioration which affect most archival materials. The term conservation has been defined as a specific practices taken to slow down deterioration and prolong the lifespan of an object by direct intervening in its physical or chemical makeup. A number of deacidification methods exist to preserve archival paper records. Concern that often guide the decision includes the material used in writing, the nature of condition of the paper substrate. After deacidification, the process of hand lamination or tissue lamination is used for conservation for records. The entire work is done by qualified, trained professionals only. Apart from this, fumigation chamber is also used to prevent the records affected from fungus. Another is digitization. Digitization offers a strategy for long-term preservation of archival records by reducing handling of original hard copy. It increases storage capacity and reduces dependence on paper records, especially when frequent access to high volumes of records is required. All over the world, the concept of modernization of archives is prevalent now, and digitization of archival records is one of the primary efforts in the direction. With the view, Bihar State Archives has also taken initiative for the digitization of archival record to reduce dependence on paper record and for frequent access of these records. The records preserved in the Bihar State Archives show the rich wealth of historical material like political, administrative, economic, and social. These materials are the outcome of administrative activities of the state government, which have accumulated in course of years. They are virtually the administrative memory of the state preserved in its narrative.
Sir, you have half a minute to wrap up.
Yeah. Our plan is we have digitized approximate 1 crore and 15 lakhs important documents. We have preserved approximate 5 lakhs folio. We have started archives for children corner, also oral history archives, short-term certificate course, archives awareness campaign, documentary film based on archives documents preserved in Bihar State Archives. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we have our last presentation for the day. The archives of Abu Abraham. Over to you, Aisha.
Thank you so much, Milli, for inviting me. This is a very nascent archive. My late father.
Aisha, just 1 minute. Ashok sir, can you mute yourself? Okay, yeah. Sorry, Aisha, for the interruption. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So thank you so much for inviting me. My late father, the cartoonist Abu Abraham, chronicled the decades that followed India's independence and post-war Britain with numerous cartoons and sketches of people and places. And he left behind thousands of original drawings, and the collection comprises of, and I think we can go to the next slide, his early work at the Shankar's Weekly in the 1950s, political cartoons for the British newspapers Observer and Guardian, and the Indian newspaper, the Indian Express, among others, and political reportage and feature writing, such as, he attended the Eichmann Trials in 1961 and the Organization for African Union in Addis Ababa in 1963, among many other events. There are many portraits of well-known personalities from across India and across the world, travel sketches and drawings, travel writing, and the Elephant and Crow comic strip titled Salt and Pepper. And he would write a weekly column, which would be syndicated to regional newspapers, translated and syndicated to regional newspapers and other publications. And so we can go to this next slide. So this is an example of the Eichmann Trials. He was a visual reporter, and you could call him that, in an age when cameras were not allowed in courtrooms. And he accompanied many journalists from across the world, including Hannah Arendt and James Morris, who later became Jan Morris. So he, he did many drawings, and so we do have this digital archive that exhibits some of these drawings. This was published in the Observer on a Sunday, in the Sunday paper, and he kind of wrote this annotation, which goes, I tried to put down Eichmann exactly as he looked to me in court, and so on. The next slide. He was better known in India for his anti-emergency cartoons, and many of them were censored. So you see the censored one here. Of course, the one with Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed is a well-known cartoon. Now, the challenge for us in the family is, and we possess this collection of originals, is how to preserve these fragile originals, the drawings and written texts that were printed in daily newspapers, and the sketchbooks that have seldom been seen. And of course, the dissemination of this brilliant body of work that embodied his humor and the humane values that he promoted of democracy, of human and non-human rights, and equality among all people. So while we look for a permanent home for the originals, we're also looking to digitally showcase the expanse of his work, and it will be his 100th birth anniversary in 2 years. So that's why, one of the reasons why I've started this process. And so we are, along with a group of people at Shrishti Yashas Shetty's lab and Dhruva Stores, we are trying to, he is helping design this digital interface. And I thought he could just say a couple of words about what they're trying to do. It's a group of young people who are trying to create this open source digital archive. And the address is there, the Lekha archive. And Dhruva, if you could come just say a few words before we end.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dhruva. I'm on the team that's developing Lekha. And as Aisha said, we're an open source archival platform, which is a website where anyone can create their archives and showcase them to people, share them with others. I just wanted to add a bit about what Aisha said about Abu's archive, because we've been helping her create this archive online. And what we found very interesting is that we're a very young group of people, and a lot of the things that Abu depicts in his sketches is something that we have not experienced personally. So it's really interesting because a lot of context and a lot of metadata is missing from these archival files. So it's very interesting for us to sort of go in and re-experience these times from his perspective. And I think this is what we're trying to do with Lekha. We're trying to democratize archival. We're trying to let anyone do it. But we're also trying to get archives out there so all kinds of people, young and old, can sort of re-experience these lost moments. I also want to thank Milli for organizing this amazing session. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to post the links to Abu's archives so you can check them out yourself in the chat. And for those of you who are listening live, it's lekha.cc, as you see here, lekha.cc. I'm also going to post them in the YouTube link, so hopefully those should stick around if you want to check it out later.
Thank you very much. I will now end the screen share and request all presenters to turn on their cameras so we can try to simulate as close as possible to a conversation. We have some participants in person as well as those on Zoom. So let's see how we can do this as best as possible. Zoom presenters, are you able to see the audience? To some extent, at least. Okay, perfect. So to begin with, Tony, could you please mute yourself? Okay. Yeah, all right. Okay. I think to begin with, we'll just, I'd like to ask the archives to respond to each other's work and kind of maybe ask any questions that they had about each other's work or any comments. And then we can take questions from members of the audience, both the in-person audience and our audience on Zoom. To our Zoom audience, if you could drop your questions on the chat, that would help us kind of moderate this discussion. Presenters, feel free to just kind of unmute and ask your questions to each other, if there are any. Okay, well, if there aren't any particular ones to begin with.
If I can jump in,
sure,
of course, this is a great opportunity for me to go check out all the other archives, but I must acknowledge Pari because I have been following their work, and it has given us so much encouragement and so many ideas of people being interested in stories, subaltern stories. And I'll definitely, now this is an opportunity for me to check out all these other archives which had such interesting stories to tell.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Manuranjan Satpati who's asking I think question to Deepti, which software does the Kelowska archives use?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm traveling, so it's real hazy. We at Past Perfect have built for archive on the collection of the archive. So for the Kirloskar, that's what we've done. We had a framework and we built in customizations based on the way that the Kirloskar group and researchers would like to access the archive. So it's something that we have developed from scratch. Also because archival softwares and I mean to sort of buy archival softwares etc. is a very, very expensive affair usually. So I mean rather than going into that, we thought this time around let's give it a shot and build one from scratch and see how it goes. And yeah, it's going pretty well so far. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Deepti. We have a question from our member of our in-person audience.
Hi.
Yeah. Can you hear Venkat?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is very specific to the work. I just wonder how one gets employed. Like it's taught and material transfer. Does one need to know Portuguese and everybody is asking again.
Mr. Balaji, are you here?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, Mr. Balaji, the question was to you, and the question was, how does one get employed at the Goa State Archives, and whether knowing Portuguese is a requirement?
Working in archives, like most of these posts are filled up by Goa Public Service Commission, like how I have joined archive services through Goa Public Service Commission. They, whenever there are vacancies, they advertise. And yes, knowing Portuguese is one of the important thing. Otherwise, you cannot work in archives, because even after knowing Portuguese, also many people are facing a lot of problems. So we every time undergo training programs and workshops. So we try to update our knowledge of Portuguese again and again. But getting into archives is basically through state service exams. And there are some assistant archivist posts which are been, whenever there are vacancies, they are advertised in the newspaper, and through those the people can apply for them.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I think Vinuta has a question for Mr. Ramakanta. If you want to answer the second part of her question, what is your dissemination model? You can just unmute and answer. So, yeah. Wait. Mr. Ramakanta, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I'm listening. The question is, there are two questions he has asked about the antiques. So first question is, we are open to the public from the all working days, that is it located at Kolkata in the bank. And the timing is 10:30 to 5 p.m. And we also follow the same principle, but the bank does like it, okay?
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Does member question? We have a question from a member of our audience. Can you come here and ask? Yeah, so they can hear. No, mic, please. Yeah.
No, for Leica, is the software built on top of Omeka?
No, so we found Omeka a bit difficult to use personally. So this was actually our inspiration for creating Leica. The idea was to create a software that anyone could use, right? Even someone who's not an archivist. So we have our own backend, which is we're building up from the ground up.
Sorry, yeah, you can ask.
So
Yes.
you built it from scratch.
Sorry,
Sorry, Dhruva, I'm asking no question.
Try the mic now. Try the mic. Huh?
Okay, Dhruva, I think.
Hi. Sorry, did you get that?
Sorry.
You come and chat with her. Okay, Dhruva, just more questions. So you have built it from scratch. So can I know a little bit about what stack?
So we were using a no-code platform called Bubble until now because we were in a rapid prototyping stage. Our goal at the beginning was to sort of get users, see what criticism they had, and build our archive that way. So we're user-centric, not building it on what we think users should have. But now we're moving to Django now that we've sort of established some kind of baseline product. So I encourage you to be one of our beta testers and help us out with the production.
Where were you guys, man? Like, yeah, I think we should get in touch because I think we are also building something. We are also using Django. So I don't know where we all this time. Anyways, I think Moses brought you on this thing. Thank you, and that person. And one for Burakat too. Please, I'm sorry. Who is the person? I didn't get the name. I'm sorry.
Sumanto.
Sumanto.
Yeah, I can barely hear you. Could you come closer to the mic or?
Okay, where is the mic?
No, you speak.
Sumanto, you can hear me now?
Yes. I can't see you, but I can definitely hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I think let's not.
It's fine.
So I know Arun, who is working on this thing, and
So Arun, yeah. Oh, great. So going by his introduction, I'm sure you know he's a person who's very well connected. Like I said, he's a world music percussionist, etc. He's the artistic director of the archive and the founder of the organization. I work as the editorial curator. We have a bunch of filmmakers, audio professionals who are working pro bono with us currently because we don't have such a massive budget or anything. And like I said, the first 3 episodes are meant to be a proof of work. So most people are offering pro bono service, but we have been fortunate to have such established people in their field coming to work with us, including DOPs, including Shrikant Krishna, who is our sound design head. He basically, you need to realize that we go to the location of these artists, these performing artists, and taking, today it's of course easier with high fidelity recording equipment, but you still need to have a stable hand and a cool mind behind the equipment. And these people have been invaluable. One of them is Srikant Krishna. There is also A-Shot Productions. These are all small setups that do commercial work otherwise, but want to make some sort of social interventions, and they offer pro bono work to us. So we've been working together, and in terms of giving it a form, etc., we want to compile the material first, and then we have a more formalized approach. So yeah, I'm happy that you heard
So
of
it's
at least of
largely
us.
the MML's region, or is it largely MML's region or
BR
BR
Hills, no. So the BR Hills is a place where we had been working for the last 4 or 5 years, collaborating and creating cultural exchange between the tribal performing artists there. Now the problem we've seen in a lot of communities where we work, BR Hills is one of the oldest places we've been working with, but we've also spread out other places on the fringes of Karnataka. You need to realize that most tribal communities are actually settled around the borders today, which is the interstate region. So we worked on all these areas, and we found mostly the biggest, scariest thing is the fact that a lot of really senior stalwart musicians have passed away without, passing on the knowledge of these performing arts to the future generations. So in BR Hills, that was the case, where we had 4 girls who had learned to some degree from their grandmother, but the entire knowledge transfer didn't happen. But we still managed to, help them solidify their practice, etc. We've also got them to collaborate with Sami folk musicians from Sweden, who came down for a residency a few years ago. This was before the pandemic. And they had a collaborative project, and we took that to many places. But over time, like I said, we've realized that we need a more targeted sort of an intervention, which is why we've started work on an archive. And like I said, it's nowhere close to being anywhere as comprehensive as the rest of the archives here.
Thanks a lot, man. And Dhruva, I think you should ask Yashas to speak about the archival project more. I think he speaks only about the coding music projects, the cool ones and the cool stuff.
I'll let him know, yeah.
Okay. We have one more question from a member of our audience.
My question, Jay Ravinan, I'm asking this question to Balaji of Goa State Archives. In fact, there are 2 questions. I would like to know what you have done with the CDs containing these archival sources you got from Portugal recently. I mean, this was given through National Archives of India. Were you able to do something with that? And my second question is, you mentioned about Modi script records that you have, and you started transliteration and not translation. Even if it's translation, that means you have people who know the script. And we know of many archives where this Modi script records are there, and we really don't have resources. We don't know about people who know the script. And if you have a database of these people, please share it so that it can be disseminated among other archives. Thank you.
Mr. Balaji, was the question audible? Okay, we'll come back to that question. We have another.
I have a question for Prashanth. May I?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hi, Prashanth. Thank you for showing us the Kabir project. It was very interesting. And thanks to everyone else as well. It's been a wonderful session. Thanks to Milli. Prashanth, just wanted to know what sort of archival material have you have as far as Kabir's dohas are concerned? I mean, you have those in original material, or how have you got it? In what different scriptures or material? How is it that it has come to you?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing because we are not a scripture-based archive of this body of poems and songs. We primarily work with oral practices of folk song and music through which these songs have actually survived. So we do not rely on the idea of authenticity, because what we are actually archiving is this oral stream of Kabir songs, dohas, and poems. So in that sense, our archiving is to actually make recordings of people who sing Kabir. And it is through them that we enter the text of the song in some ways. So primarily our focus is on song, on listening, on the musicality of these traditions. And that's why whatever text we also transcribe out of the listening process, out of recordings, is presented in the textual form, but the base of all that text is the song. So in that sense, we do not have books and papers and sort of stories. We instead have recordings which are for grounding the orality of this tradition. So that's our primary source, and that's what we stick to. So you will find a lot of interesting things happen, like a same song, which, let's say a song called Mero Man Lago Fakiri Mein. Sometimes singers sing it with a Kabir chap, which is a signature of Kabir. And the similar song with the similar words is sung with a Mira chap in a different region of India. And we take both of them as valid. We don't try to hunt down what is the real, because that's the nature of oral traditions, right? Like it survives by improvisation. It dynamically changes its form, shape, dialect. So we retain that that sort of quality of dynamism, and we don't try to lock it in a particular scriptural location.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll take one question to all of our presenters. So anybody who wants to answer this question, please feel free to jump in and then wrap up if that's all right. There's a question in the chat by Dr. Heather Brown. Is it visible to all the presenters? As preservation is my subject, I can understand that many challenges in preserving audiovisual collections and digital collections that are at high risk or of deterioration and loss. Do any of the archives liaise with organizations such as IGN, CA for advice? Does anybody want to jump in and take that question? Okay. Well, so if the presenters want to kind of address this on chat, then we have one last question to wrap up with.
So I found the Zuban Project's logo very interesting. I was wondering if there is a story behind it.
Ishani's left. Yeah. Okay, well, Ishita, just go for it. Yeah.
Hi, am I audible? Can anybody not know? Okay, am I audible now? Can somebody just nod?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Ishita here. I think it's more of a celebration today than International Archives Week. I'm just reflecting for myself 10 years into archiving that we're talking about such diverse projects growing in India. I mean, and the level at which you all are working, that's amazing. Thank you so much. My question is to further our intentions, and I wanted to know if any of these archiving projects have been thinking about public engagement. So beyond your obvious users, beyond your researchers and the expected audience into your archives, what kind of ideas or initiatives are even brewing, for that matter of fact? I mean, I can take example of Kabir Project, having attended quite a few performances, but that's because of the media itself. Any other forms of public engagement that anybody wants to throw light on for to grow? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I just, I couldn't get the name of the person who asked the question, but
Ishita Shah. Yeah.
Ishita, yeah. Actually, yeah. I mean, she also mentioned anyway that we do hold, our goal with the archive was actually to sort of for people to return to the folk singers. It's not necessarily an archive in itself, but in some ways, if it can loop back. And also for the people who are practicing these songs, for them to also listen to other voices from other regions which might be geographically and socially distant. Apart from that, in terms of public engagements, apart from the concerts we organize, we are also thinking at this stage of developing educational programs for school children. We are hoping to incubate a project called Shabad Shala, which will take folk musicians to schools, and the archive will act like a backup resource for the teachers and students to engage with. And also then we are hoping to use the archive as a springboard to develop curriculum. So that's one of the sort of recent initiatives of thinking about public engagement with the material that we have collected.
Hi, can I sort of add to that also? So I may not necessarily be talking about the Kirloskar archive in this case, because we are in the nascent stage of just sort of setting up and, just figuring out the collection usage and then eventually engagement with it. But I can sort of talk about some other collections and how we've sort of invited public engagement with those. We do a lot of exhibitions, physical exhibitions with collections all around. We recently did one with the Asiatic Society of Bombay's map collection. That was an exhibition we did at the Darbar Hall, which was called Meandering Through a Map Canvas. So that sort of, again, we saw a lot of diverse audiences come and interact with original exhibits and make their own storylines, interpretations. And it was really beautiful to sort of see all of that, come through. We also do a lot of digital engagement with other archives. To give you one example, we're sort of curating a centenary campaign for a brand called Bharat Floorings and Tiles. Now they turn 100 this year. So we have a whole digital campaign curated around using their archive, around their history. We're doing 100 years, 100 stories as a campaign also. So in this way, we're sort of, because we work with a lot of private histories and not public history, we just sort of try to, draw attention to how much value even a personal history can sort of contribute to public history, right? So we sort of keep building engagement campaigns well, and I think the best part of it is the interpretations they make themselves with the material you show them and the material that they see.
I may add here as well to the question Ishita has asked. Hi, Ishita, nice to connect with you on this platform. Well, yes, as you may be aware, we recently did, in fact, it's still going on, the exhibition on one of our collections, which is the Kamal Mangaldas and Devendra Shah, an architect and structural engineers collaborative practice, which lasted over 4 decades. Now, the idea of doing the exhibition was not just to reach out to our target audience, but also to reach out to the general public of Ahmedabad city, because the practice which we were focusing on has contributed so much over the last 50 years or so to the evolution of changing built environment of the city of Ahmedabad, right from housing projects to public parks to public gardens and so on. So it was, and also to even to the hawkers, they have been given a more permanent space through this practice and innovative solutions that they've brought up. So in a way, it was celebrating their work, inviting public to view it and engage with it, and for other people to get inspired and they take these ideas forward into city planning and creating better environment for our cities. So that was, in a way, reaching out to the larger audience, not just to our target audience.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think with that question, we shall bring this event to a close. Thank you so much to all the presenters for all your time, effort, and patience that you've put into your presentations, and for sharing all of your work with us. I can think of no better way of celebrating International Archives Day with all of you. To our audience on Zoom, thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. Do kind of follow Milli on all of the social media channels to get more updates on such events. Thank you all members of our in-person audience for joining us, and do give presenters, the round of applause is for you once again, guys. Yeah. We're not able to show you the room because of some camera issues, but there is a room full of people who are applauding your efforts. Thank you so much. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Check out the links. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.